Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the orbital defense station. He looked down at New Terra through the large windows. The planet was beautiful. Green fields spread across the land like a soft blanket. Cities sparkled in the morning. Sun. 2 million humans lived there. They had worked for 30 years to make this world their home. Jake drank his coffee and watched the sunrise. It was just another normal day. The defense station floated quietly in space above the planet. Everything was peaceful. The colonists below were starting their day. Children walked to school. Parents went to work. Farmers checked their crops. Then, the alarm started screaming. "Captain Morrison, we have contacts," shouted Lieutenant Amy Clark from her station. "Multiple ships coming out of hyperspace." Jake put down his coffee cup. His hands were steady, but his heart began to beat faster. "How many ships?" 50. No, 100? "Sir, I count over 200 vessels." Jake had never seen so many ships at once. The vessels were huge, much larger than anything humans had built. They had a dark, threatening look. Sharp edges and weapon ports covered their hulls. The ships moved in perfect formation, like a school of deadly fish. "Get me Colonel Warren on the planet," Jake ordered. The screen lit up with the face of Lisa. Warren. She was the planetary defense coordinator. Her office was in the capital city below. Behind her, Jake could see people running past the windows. The colonists knew something was wrong. "Jake, what are those ships?" Lisa asked. Her voice was calm, but Jake could see worry in her eyes. "I don't know. They're not human. They're not from any race we know." The alien ships stopped moving. They formed a perfect circle around New Terra. The largest ship, a massive dreadnought, moved to the front. It was 3 times bigger than Jake's defense station. Then came the message. The voice spoke in perfect English, but it was cold and mechanical. "Humans of New Terra, you will listen. You will obey. I am Admiral Kethvar of the Vorthic Empire. Your species has been chosen for integration into our great empire." Jake felt ice in his stomach. Lisa's face went pale on the screen. The alien voice continued. "You have 72 hours to surrender. You will submit to the empire. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your leaders will be removed. Your people will serve us. Your children will be taken for proper education. Your worlds will be used for our needs. What if we refuse?" Jake whispered, though he knew the alien couldn't hear him. As if reading his thoughts, the alien admiral answered. "If you refuse, you will be destroyed. Your cities will burn. Your people will die. Your world will be dust. This is not a negotiation. This is an order." The transmission ended. The alien ships waited in silence. Jake's hands shook as he called. "Earth Command." The response came quickly. General Bob Turner's face appeared on screen. He looked tired and scared. "Jake, we're getting the same message everywhere. Every human colony. Every human world. They hit us all at the same time. How many ships do we have, General?" 300 ships in the entire fleet. "Jake, one of their ships could probably destroy 10 of ours. They have weapons we can't even." "Understand." Lisa joined the call from the planet. "We need to evacuate the civilians." "Where would they go?" General Turner asked. "They're at every human world. There's nowhere to run." On Earth, President Daniel Hayes called an emergency meeting. The Colonial Defense Council gathered in the underground bunker beneath the Capitol. The room was full of worried faces. These were the leaders of humanity, and they looked defeated. Admiral Ben Parker stood at the front of the room. He was humanity's best military commander. "The alien technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their ships are faster, stronger, and better armed. We cannot win a direct fight. What about negotiation?" asked Senator Mary Collins. "Maybe we can find a middle ground." "There is no middle ground. President Hayes said quietly. They want everything. Our freedom, our worlds, our children. They want us to become slaves. The debate went on for hours. Some leaders wanted to fight anyway. Others wanted to try talking to the aliens. A few suggested hiding on distant worlds. But everyone knew the truth. Humanity was trapped. Back on New Terra, Jake watched the alien ships through his telescope. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Smooth metal surfaces reflected the light of the sun. But Jake knew they carried death inside them. "Captain, we're getting reports from other colonies," said Lieutenant Clark. "The aliens are showing their power. They destroyed 3 moons near Harvest Prime, just to prove they could." Jake closed his eyes. He thought about his daughter Sarah. She was only 8 years old. She lived in the city below with her mother. What kind of future would she have as a slave to the Empire? The hours passed slowly. People on New Terra tried to live normal lives, but everyone was scared. The news channels showed the alien ships. Children asked their parents what was happening. Parents didn't know what to say. In the underground bunker on Earth, President Hayes made a decision that would change everything. He called Dr. Helen Foster. She was a scientist who worked on dangerous projects that other people called crazy. "Dr. Foster, I need to know about Protocol Omega." Dr. Foster's face went white. "Sir, that project was classified. We agreed never to use it." "Tell me about it." "It's a way to destroy planets. Completely. We developed it for asteroid mining. But it could be used on any world. It would make the planet uninhabitable. Forever." President Hayes stared at her. "How long would it take?" "A few hours to set up." "But sir, you're talking about destroying our own worlds. Killing billions of people." "Dr. Foster, what if we evacuated? First, what if we left nothing for the Empire to take?" The room went silent. Everyone understood what the president was thinking. It was insane. It was impossible. It was the only way to stay free. "If we can't keep our worlds," President Hayes said slowly, "then no one can have them." The countdown had begun. 72 hours to surrender, or 72 hours to destroy everything humans had built among the stars. The choice would define humanity forever. Dr. Helen Foster had never wanted to be famous. She worked in a secret laboratory on Earth's moon. Her job was to find ways to break apart asteroids for mining. She invented machines that could make rocks explode from the inside. But her greatest invention was something much more dangerous. The quantum destabilizer could make planets. Helen explained how it worked to President Hayes. "We put special devices deep in the planet's core. They make the atoms go crazy. The whole planet becomes like a giant bomb. Everything gets destroyed." "How long does it take?" President Hayes asked. "Once we start the process, maybe 6 hours. But we need time to place the devices. And we need time to get everyone off the planet first." President Hayes looked at the other leaders. "We have 60 hours left. Can we evacuate 2 billion people in that time?" "We can try," said Admiral Ben Parker. "But it won't be easy. We'll need every ship we have." The president made his choice. "Send the order. Protocol Omega is active. Every human world will be evacuated and destroyed. The Empire will get nothing but dust." The secret message went out to all human colonies. Colony leaders couldn't believe what they were reading. Destroy their own worlds? It seemed impossible. But the alternative was slavery. On New Terra, Colonel Lisa Warren received her orders. She read them 3 times before she understood. Then she called her staff together. "We're going to evacuate everyone," she told them. "Every person on this planet. We have 55 hours. Where will they go?" Asked Major Tim Brooks. "To the transport ships. They're coming from Earth. We'll live on the ships until we find new worlds." "What about New Terra?" Lisa looked out the window at the beautiful world they had built. New Terra dies. We destroy it ourselves. The Empire gets nothing. The evacuation began immediately. Every human ship in the galaxy turned toward the colonies. Passenger ships, cargo ships, even small private vessels. They all came to help. On New Terra, the people were confused and scared. Soldiers went door to door in every city. Pack only. What you can carry, they said. Leave everything else. We have to go now. Families grabbed their most important things. Photos, medicine, small toys for children. They left behind houses, furniture, and years of hard work. Many people cried. Some refused to leave. Kate Sullivan was in charge of organizing the evacuation. In New Terra's capital city, she had been a school administrator before this crisis. Now she was trying to move 500,000 people in 2 days. The transport ships are landing at the spaceport, she announced over the city's speakers. Bring 1 bag per person. Children stay with their parents. Follow the soldiers' instructions. The spaceport was chaos. Thousands of people pushed toward the ships. Children got lost in the crowds. Old people couldn't walk fast enough. Parents carried crying babies. The transport ships were not built for so many people. They were cramped and uncomfortable. Captain Morrison watched from his space station as the evacuation ships arrived. Hundreds of vessels filled the sky around New Terra. They landed, loaded people, and took off again. It was like watching ants moving their nest, but Morrison had another job. He was placing the quantum destabilizers. Helen Foster had sent in the devices and instructions. They looked like small metal boxes, but each one contained enough power to crack a planet. Morrison and his team used shuttles to place them deep underground. This feels wrong, said Lieutenant Amy Clark as they lowered a destabilizer into a mining shaft. We're destroying our own world. Better to destroy it ourselves than let the Empire have it, Morrison replied. But he felt sick inside. New Terra was his home, too. Similar scenes happened on every human world. On Harvest Prime, farmer Steve Collins helped load the last grain ships. The colonists were leaving behind vast fields of food. The Empire wanted to feed their people with our crops, Steve said. Now they'll get nothing but burned dirt. On the mining world of Titan's Rest, engineer Lucy Martinez worked in the underground cities. The miners had spent decades digging tunnels through the planet's crust. Now Lucy was placing quantum destabilizers in those same tunnels. We built this world with our hands, said miner Joe Peterson. Now we're going to destroy it with our hands, too. The hardest part was explaining to the children. 8-year-old Sarah Morrison asked her father, "Why do we have to leave our house?" "Because bad people want to take it away from us," Captain Morrison explained. "So we're going to break it so they can't have it. But then we can't have it either." "That's right, Sarah. Sometimes that's the only choice." The alien ships watched, but did nothing. Admiral Kethvar thought the humans were just moving there. Valuables to safety. He didn't understand that humans were abandoning everything. "Let them scurry around," he told his officers. "In a few hours, they'll surrender. Then we'll have their world and their people." But some aliens were getting suspicious. Scout ships reported unusual human activity. "They're placing devices underground," one report said. "The purpose is unknown." Admiral Kethvar was not worried. What could primitive humans do against the Empire? With 24 hours left, the evacuation was almost complete. The transport ships were full of frightened people. Many families had been separated in the rush. Children looked for their parents. Parents searched for their children. President Hayes visited one of the evacuation ships. The conditions were terrible. People slept on the floor. There wasn't enough food or water. Sick people couldn't get proper medicine. "Sir," said a woman holding a baby, "how long will we have to live?" "Like this?" I don't know, Hayes answered honestly. But you'll be free. Your children will be free. Dr. Foster was on the ship too. She carried the remote control device that would trigger all the quantum destabilizers. Her hands shook as she held it. Are you ready? President Hayes asked her. No, she said, but I'll do it anyway. The final evacuation ships launched with 6 hours to spare. From his space station, Captain Narration watched the last transport leave New Terra's atmosphere. 2 million people were now crammed into ships designed for cargo, not passengers. Morrison's team was the last to leave. They boarded their shuttle and flew toward the evacuation fleet. Behind them, New Terra looked peaceful and beautiful. Cities sparkled in the sunlight. Rivers flowed through green valleys. It was hard to believe they were about to destroy it. All quantum destabilizers are active, reported Lieutenant Clark. All systems ready. Morrison activated his communicator. This is New Terra control to all ships. We are ready for Protocol Omega. Similar reports came from every human world. 47 planets were ready to die. The evacuation fleets waited. In space, watching their homeworlds for the last time, President Hayes spoke to the entire human race over the radio. My fellow humans, we face a choice today. We can live as slaves, or we can die as free people. We choose freedom. We choose to deny the Empire everything they want from us. Admiral Kethvar heard the broadcast. He laughed. Empty words from a defeated species. They will surrender when they see our power. But Dr. Foster was already reaching for the remote control. The countdown had reached 0. It was time for the human race to burn their own worlds to ash. For humanity, she whispered, and pressed the button. The button was small and red. Dr. Helen Foster pressed it with one finger. In that moment, she became the person who destroyed 47 worlds. The quantum destabilizers activated across human space. Deep underground on every colony world, the small metal boxes began to work. They sent special waves into the planet's core. The waves made atoms move faster and faster until they couldn't stay together. On New Terra, the first signs appeared. In the mining tunnels, the rock walls began to glow with strange light. The temperature rose quickly. Emergency sensors screened warnings that no one was left to hear. Captain Morrison watched from his evacuation ship. He had a telescope pointed at his home world. For the first few minutes, nothing seemed to happen. New Terra looked the same as always. Then the ground started to crack. Long lines of fire appeared across the continents. The cracks spread like spider webs. Lava shot up from deep inside the planet. The beautiful green fields caught fire. The sparkling cities began to melt. Sir, we need to move the fleet back, said Lieutenant Amy Clark. The explosion will be bigger than we thought. Morrison gave the order. The evacuation ships flew away from New Terra as fast as they could. Behind them, the planet was coming apart. The core of New Terra had become unstable. All the atoms were moving in the same direction. The planet was turning into a giant bomb. The surface bulged outward like a balloon being filled with air. In the Imperial fleet, Admiral Kethvar watched in confusion. What are the humans doing to their planet? Unknown, sir, replied his science officer. But the energy readings are off the charts. Something is very wrong. Kethvar was about to call for a retreat when New Terra exploded. The planet split apart like a cracked egg. The explosion was brighter than the sun. The blast waves spread out in all directions. Chunks of rock and metal flew through space at incredible speed. The Imperial ships were too close. The blast wave hit them like a giant hammer. The smaller vessels were destroyed instantly. The larger ships were damaged and thrown off course. Half of the invasion fleet was wiped out in seconds. Admiral Kethvar's dreadnought survived, but barely. The ship was full of holes. Many of his crew were dead. The bridge was filled with smoke and sparks. "Report!" Kethvar shouted. "Severe damage to all systems, sir. We've lost contact with 60% of our fleet." Kethvar stared at the place, where New Terra used to be. Now there was only an expanding cloud of hot gas and debris. The humans had destroyed their own world rather than let the Empire have it. But New Terra was just the beginning. Across human space, the same thing was happening. On Harvest Prime, the farming world exploded in a ball of fire. The grain fields that could have fed millions of Imperial citizens became deadly radiation. On Titan's Rest, the mining world collapsed into itself before exploding outward. The valuable metals that the Empire wanted were scattered across space, useless and radioactive. World after world died. The humans were destroying everything they had built. Cities, farms, factories, homes, all of it was being turned to ash. In dust, Admiral Ben Parker commanded the main evacuation fleet. From his flagship, the Freedom's Price, he watched the destruction. The ship was packed with refugees. People slept in the hallways. Children cried for their lost homes. "Admiral, we're getting reports from all colonies," said his aide, Commander Rick Davis. "The destructions are complete. 47 worlds are gone." Parker nodded grimly. "And the Imperial fleets?" "Heavy damage. We estimate they lost half their ships." Parker looked at the crowded refugees around him. 2 billion humans were now homeless. They had no planets, no cities, no permanent homes. Everything they owned was on these ships, but they were free. On Earth, President Hayes received the final reports. Every human colony was destroyed. The evacuation fleets were safe, but overcrowded. The Empire's invasion forces were crippled. "We did it," he said quietly. "We actually did it." But the victory felt hollow. Hayes looked at the list of destroyed worlds: New Terra, Harvest Prime, Titan's Rest, and 44 others. Billions of people had called those places home. Now they were nothing but expanding clouds of debris. Dr. Foster sat in the corner of the command center. She hadn't spoken since pressing the button. The weight of what she had done was crushing her spirit. "Dr. Foster," President Hayes said gently, "you saved humanity today." "I killed 47 worlds," she replied. "How is that saving anyone? You gave us our freedom. The Empire wanted to make us slaves. Now they have nothing to enslave." Across the galaxy, news of the Great Burning spread. Quickly, other alien races heard the story with amazement. The humans had chosen death over slavery. They had destroyed their own worlds rather than submit to the Empire. On the Zelani homeworld, the ruling council met in emergency session. "If the humans could do this," said Chancellor Varakai, "what could we do?" The Zelani had been conquered by the Empire 50 years ago. Their people worked in Imperial factories. Their children were taken to Imperial schools. They had accepted slavery because the alternative was death. But the humans had chosen death, and somehow won. The Mantis Collective was also watching. These insect-like beings had fought the Empire for decades, but they had never won a real victory. Now they saw a new possibility. "The humans showed us something," said Warrior Queen Zakthul. "They showed us that the Empire is not invincible. They can be hurt. They can be defeated." Emperor Thane Moore of the Vorthic Empire received the reports. In his palace, he was thousands of light years away from the human colonies. But the news reached him quickly. 47 worlds destroyed. Half the invasion fleet lost. No prisoners taken. No resources captured. The Emperor had ruled for 300 years. He had conquered hundreds of worlds. Never had he seen anything like this. How is this possible? He asked his advisors. No species has ever chosen total destruction over submission. The humans are different, Your Majesty, said his military commander. They value their freedom more than their lives. Then they are fools, the emperor said. Dead fools. But privately, the emperor was worried. The empire's power came from fear. Other races submitted because they were afraid to die. If the humans could choose death over slavery, maybe other races would make the same choice. In the human evacuation fleet, life was hard. The ships were crowded and uncomfortable. Food was rationed. Water was recycled. Medical supplies were running low. But the humans adapted. They organized schools for the children. They set up clinics for the sick. They created work groups to maintain the ships. They were becoming a spacefaring people. Captain Morrison found his daughter Sarah in the refugee section of his ship. She was playing with other children in a makeshift playground. "Daddy, when can we go home?" she asked. Morrison knelt down beside her. "We don't have a home anymore, sweetheart. Our home was destroyed. But where will we live? Right here on the ships. We'll find new places to live eventually. But for now, this is our home." Sarah looked around at the metal walls and crowded spaces. "I miss my room. I miss my toys." "I know, baby. I miss them too. But we're safe. We're free. And we're together." The evacuation fleet moved toward the edge of the galaxy. They needed to find a place to hide and regroup. The Empire would be looking for them. There would be revenge attacks. But something unexpected was happening. The Zilani Republic sent a secret message to the human fleet. "We want to help," it said. "We want to fight the Empire too." Then came a message from the Mantis Collective. "We are impressed by your courage. We want to learn your ways." President Hayes realized that the Great Burning had done more than save humanity. It had inspired other races to resist the Empire. The humans had lit a fire of rebellion across the galaxy. "We may have lost our worlds," Hayes told his advisors, "but we may have gained something more important. We may have gained allies." The human fleet continued into the darkness between stars. Behind them, the Empire's conquest had turned to ash. Ahead of them lay an uncertain future. But for the first time in days, the humans felt hope. They had shown the galaxy that the Empire could be defeated. They had proven that freedom was worth any price. The Great Burning was over. The age of human wandering had begun. 6 months after the Great Burning, the human fleet found a new home in the Void Nebula. It was a dangerous place, filled with radiation and space storms. Most races avoided it completely. That made it perfect for hiding. The nebula was like a giant cloud of purple and blue gas. Lightning flashed between the stars. Strange particles made navigation difficult. But the humans learned to use these dangers as protection. General Pete Williams stood on the bridge of the battleship, New Dawn. He had been a simple colonial defense officer before the crisis. Now he commanded all human military forces. The job had changed him. His hair was gray, and his eyes were hard. "Status report," he ordered. "All ships are operational, sir," replied Captain Morrison. "We've established a base on the asteroid cluster. The civilians are adapting well to life in the nebula." Williams nodded. The humans had turned the asteroid field into a hidden city. They dug tunnels through the rocks and built living spaces. Inside, it wasn't comfortable, but it was safe. Life in the nebula was strange. Children who had been born on planets now grew up in metal corridors. They learned to walk in low gravity. They played games in zero atmosphere. They were becoming something new, true children of space. Dr. Helen Foster worked in her new laboratory, inside the largest asteroid. She had been quiet and sad since the Great Burning, but now she was busy again, creating new weapons for the human fleet. "The Hellfire missiles are ready," she told General Williams. "They can penetrate Imperial armor. The Banshee fighters are fast enough to avoid their detection systems." "Good. We'll need them soon." The Empire had problems of their own. The destruction of the invasion fleet had cost them dearly. But worse, the human example was spreading rebellion across the galaxy. On the Zalani homeworld, workers were refusing to report to Imperial factories. Zalani soldiers were deserting their posts. The rebellion was growing stronger every day. Admiral Verakai of the Zalani Republic sent secret messages to the human fleet. "We want to form an alliance," she said. "We want to learn your fighting methods." The Mantis Collective was also interested. Warrior Queen Zak Thul had been fighting the Empire for decades. She had never won a major victory. But the humans had given her hope. "Your people did something impossible," she told President Hayes in a holographic meeting. "You defeated the Empire without armies or weapons. You defeated them with will." President Hayes, who now called himself Speaker of the Exodus, met with the alien leaders. The meeting took place in a hidden location at the edge of the nebula. "We want to form the Liberation Alliance," Hayes explained. "Humans, Zalani, Mantis, and any other race that wants freedom. Together, we can destroy the Empire." "What do you want from us?" asked Admiral Verakai. "Ships, soldiers, and information. We'll provide tactics and weapons. The humans have learned to fight in space. We can teach you." Warrior Queen Zak Thul clicked her mandibles in agreement. The Empire has ruled through fear for too long. It's time to show them what fear really means. The first test came when an Imperial supply convoy entered the nebula by accident. A convoy was carrying weapons and supplies to Imperial forces. There were 20 ships protected by escort vessels. Commander Rick Davis led the human attack. He commanded a squadron of the new Banshee fighters. These small ships were fast and hard to see on Imperial sensors. "Remember," Davis told his pilots, "we hit fast and disappear. Don't try to fight the big ships. Target the supply vessels." The attack began at dawn, nebula time. The Banshee fighters came out of the purple gas like ghosts. They fired their Hellfire missiles and vanished before the Imperial ships could respond. A convoy was destroyed in minutes. The Imperial escort. Ships found nothing to fight. The human fighters had already disappeared back into the nebula. "We captured their supply ship," Davis reported to General Williams. "The intelligence data is very valuable." The captured data showed Imperial fleet movements across the galaxy. It revealed weak points in their defenses. Most importantly, it showed the locations of Imperial shipyards. "This is our chance," Williams told the Liberation Alliance leaders. "We can strike at their ability to build new ships. If we destroy their shipyards, the Empire can't replace their losses." The plan was called Operation Starfall. The Alliance would attack 7 Imperial shipyards at the same time. The humans would provide the expertise and special weapons. The Zalani and Mantis would provide the ships and soldiers. Each shipyard was heavily defended. The Empire had learned from their losses. They expected revenge attacks. But they didn't expect the coordination of the Alliance. Lucy Martinez, the engineer, from Titan's Rest, designed special bombs for the operation. They were small enough to be carried by fighter ships, but powerful enough to destroy entire shipyards. "Each bomb contains a miniature quantum destabilizer," she explained. "It will cause a chain reaction in the shipyard's power systems. The whole facility will collapse." The Alliance fleets moved into position. Human ships hid in asteroid fields. Zalani vessels used their cloaking technology. Mantis fighters waited in the darkness between stars. Admiral Kethvar was now the Empire's supreme military commander. He had survived the Great Burning, but barely. His body was covered in scars from that day. His hatred of humans burned like fire. "The humans are planning something," he told his staff. "Increase security at all shipyards. Double the patrol schedules." But Kethvar's preparations were not enough. The Alliance had learned from the humans. They had learned to fight like people. With nothing to lose, Operation Starfall began at exactly midnight Imperial time. 7 Alliance fleets attacked 7 different shipyards. The coordination was perfect. At the Kronos shipyard, Zilani cruisers attacked the defense platforms, while human fighters slipped through the chaos. Captain Morrison led a squadron of Banshee fighters deep into the facility. "Target the main power core," he ordered. "Plant the quantum charges and get out." The bombs were placed perfectly. When they exploded, the entire shipyard began to collapse. The massive construction bays crumbled. Half-built Imperial ships fell into the shipyards. Central Core. Similar attacks happened at 6 other locations. The Empire's greatest shipyards were destroyed in a single night. Years of construction work were turned to scrap metal. Emperor Thanemore watched the reports come in. 7 shipyards destroyed. Thousands of ships lost. The Empire's ability to build new vessels was crippled. How is this possible? He screamed at his advisors. How can refugees and rebels cause such damage? "The humans have changed the nature of warfare, Your Majesty," said his military advisor. "They don't fight to conquer. They fight to destroy." "Then we will destroy them first. Send the remaining fleet to hunt down the human ships. I want every refugee vessel turned to ash." But the human fleet was already moving. They had learned to live in space. They could disappear into nebulae and asteroid fields. They were like a school of fish in the cosmic ocean, always moving, never staying in one place. The Imperial fleet searched for months, but found nothing. The humans had vanished, but their attacks continued. Imperial supply ships disappeared. Outposts were destroyed. The Empire's forces were being picked apart, piece by piece. General Williams met with his commanders in their hidden base. "The Empire is getting desperate. They'll try something big soon. What do you think they'll do?" asked Captain Morrison. "They'll try to break the Alliance. They'll attack rebel worlds to scare the others into submission." Williams was right. Emperor Thanemore ordered the bombardment of 3 Zilani colonies. The Imperial fleet turned the planets into burning wastelands. Millions of innocent people died, but the strategy failed. Instead of scaring the rebels, it made them angry. More races joined the Alliance. The Empire's cruelty had become their weakness. Admiral Verakai spoke for all the rebels when she said, "The Empire has shown us their true nature. They are not conquerors. They are destroyers. We will not submit to destroyers." The final battle was coming. The Empire was gathering its remaining forces for one last attack. The Alliance was preparing to meet them. In the hidden base, children played in the tunnels while their parents prepared for war. These children had been born in space. They had no homeworld to miss. The fleet was their world. 8-year-old Sarah Morrison asked her father, "Will we ever have a planet to live on?" Captain Morrison looked at his daughter. She was growing up, strong and brave. "Maybe someday, sweetheart. But right now, we have something more important." "What's that?" "We have each other, and we have our freedom. No one can take that away from us." The human fleet prepared for the final confrontation. They had started as refugees fleeing their burning worlds. Now they were the leaders of a galactic rebellion. The Empire had wanted to conquer them. Instead, the humans had learned to conquer space itself. They had become something new, wanderers who carried freedom wherever they went. The war was not over. But the humans had already won the most important victory. They had proven that no empire could defeat the human spirit. The final battle began in the Andromeda sector. The Empire had gathered its last great fleet, over 1,000 ships led by Admiral Kethvar. They came to destroy the human refugees once and for all. The Alliance fleet was much smaller. 300 human ships, 400 Zilani vessels, and 200 Mantis fighters. But they had something the Empire didn't have. They had nothing left to lose. General Pete Williams stood on the bridge of the strike carrier New Dawn. Around him, his staff prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. Enemy fleet approaching, reported Captain Morrison. They outnumber us 3-1. Good, Williams replied. That means they're all in one place. The human fleet had spent months preparing for this moment. They knew they couldn't win a straight fight, but they didn't need to win. They only needed to destroy. Admiral Kethvar watched the Alliance fleet through his ship's view screen. The human vessels looked small and weak compared to his massive dreadnoughts. Finally, we will crush these rebels, he said to his officers. Today, the Empire will have its revenge for the Great Burning. But Kethvar didn't understand how much the humans had changed. They were no longer colonists defending their homes. They were warriors who lived in the darkness between stars. Battle began when the human fighters attacked. Thousands of small Banshee craft swarmed out of the Alliance fleet like angry bees. They moved in patterns that confused the Imperial gunners. Captain Morrison led the first wave. His fighters were so fast that the Imperial weapons couldn't track them. They darted between the massive dreadnoughts, firing their Hellfire missiles at weak points. Target their shield generators, Morrison ordered over the radio. Bring down their defenses. The Imperial ships tried to respond, but their tactics were old-fashioned. They expected enemies to fight in formation, ship against ship. The humans fought like a storm, everywhere at once. Impossible to catch. Dr. Helen Foster watched the battle from the command ship. In her hands, she held a new device, a quantum destabilizer designed for starships instead of planets. She had learned from the Great Burning. This time, she would destroy the Empire's fleet instead of her own worlds. "Are you ready, Doctor?" asked General Williams. "Yes," she said quietly. "This time, I'm destroying the right targets." The space battle raged for hours. Imperial dreadnoughts fired their massive weapons, but they hit mostly empty space. The Alliance ships were too fast and too clever. They attacked and vanished like ghosts. Slowly, the Imperial fleet began to take damage. Their shields failed under the constant attacks. Their armor was pierced by the Hellfire missiles. Several smaller ships were destroyed completely. Admiral Kethvar grew desperate. All ships formed defensive formation. Focus fire on the human command vessel. The Imperial fleet turned its weapons toward the New Dawn. Hundreds of energy beams and missiles flew toward the human flagship. For a moment, it seemed like the humans would be destroyed, but Admiral Vera Kai and her Zelani ships moved to protect them. The alien vessels used their advanced shields to block the Imperial attack. Warrior Queen Zak Thul led her Mantis fighters in a suicide run against the Imperial guns. "The Alliance holds together," Williams said with pride. "They're fighting like humans now." The turning point came when Dr. Foster activated her ship-killing quantum destabilizers. She had hidden them on several Imperial vessels during the early part of the battle. Small human fighters had planted them like seeds of destruction. "Quantum charges armed," Foster reported. "Activating in 3.2.1. The first Imperial dreadnought simply disappeared. One moment it was firing its weapons. The next moment there was only empty space and expanding energy. The quantum destabilizer had converted the entire ship into pure energy. Then another dreadnought vanished, and another. The Imperial fleet watched in horror as their greatest ships were erased from existence. "Impossible," Kethvar whispered. "How are they doing this?" His science officer was pale with fear. "Sir, they're using some kind of matter conversion weapon. Our ships are being destroyed at the atomic level." Kethvar realized he was losing the battle. The Empire's superior numbers meant nothing against weapons that could erase ships completely. All vessels, retreat. We must escape while we can. But it was too late. The Alliance fleet surrounded the Imperial forces. There was nowhere to run. General Williams opened a communication channel to the entire Imperial fleet. This is General Williams of the human forces. I offer you one chance to surrender. Kethvar's face appeared on the screen. The alien admiral looked old and defeated. You have won this battle, human, but the Empire will never surrender. Then, the Empire will die, Williams replied calmly. The final phase of the battle was swift and terrible. The Alliance forces destroyed the remaining Imperial ships, one by one. The quantum destabilizers erased the largest vessels. Conventional weapons finished off the rest. Admiral Kethvar's flagship was the last to fall. As his ship broke apart around him, the alien admiral sent one final message. You have doomed the galaxy, humans. Without the Empire's order, there will be chaos. There will be freedom, Williams answered. We'll take chaos over slavery any day. The Imperial fleet was destroyed. Not a single ship escaped to carry word back to the Empire's capital. The greatest military force in the galaxy had been defeated by refugees living in the void. But the victory was just the beginning. Across Imperial space, the news spread quickly. The Emperor's fleet was gone. The rebels had won. On world after world, Imperial garrisons found themselves surrounded by angry populations. The Empire's local forces surrendered or fled. The great Vorthic Empire began to collapse like a house of cards. Emperor Thanmor received the reports in his palace. His greatest fleet was destroyed. His colonies were in rebellion. His own people were questioning his rule. Your Majesty, said his advisor, perhaps we should negotiate with the rebels. The Emperor looked at the man with cold eyes. The Vorthic Empire does not negotiate with inferior species. That night, Emperor Thanmor was found dead in his chamber. Some said he killed himself rather than face defeat. Others believed his own guards had murdered him. The Empire's last ruler died as he had lived, alone and hated. The war was over, but the peace was just beginning. Representatives from dozens of species met to form a new government. They called it the Galactic Council, and its first law was simple. No species would ever be enslaved again. President Hayes, still calling himself Speaker of the Exodus, addressed the new council. We humans have no desire to rule anyone. We just want to be free to live our own lives. The council offered the humans dozens of worlds to colonize. Beautiful planets with clean air and fertile soil. Worlds where children could run in grass instead of metal corridors. But the humans surprised everyone by refusing. We've learned to live in space, Hayes explained. Our ships are our homes now. We'll stay mobile, moving from system to system. If tyranny ever rises again, we'll be there to fight it. Captain Morrison stood with his daughter Sarah on the observation deck of their ship. She was 10 years old now, tall and strong. She had never known life on a planet, but she didn't seem to miss it. Look, Daddy, she said, pointing at the stars. Our new assignment came in. We're going to the Outer Rim to help the Kalo people set up their government. Morrison smiled. The human fleet had become the galaxy's peacekeepers. They went wherever freedom was threatened. They taught other species how to defend themselves. Are you happy living on ships, Sarah? He asked. Of course, she replied. This is better than having just one world. We have the whole galaxy. Dr. Helen Foster had also found peace. She no longer built weapons of destruction. Instead, she designed tools to help other species rebuild their worlds. Her quantum technology was now used to create, not destroy. I destroyed 47 worlds, she told her assistant one day. Now I'm going to help build 1,000 new ones. The human fleet continued its journey through the stars. They had no permanent home, but they didn't need one. Every ship was a piece of humanity. Every family was a colony. Every child was the future. The Empire had wanted to make humans into slaves. Instead, humans had become something new, guardians of freedom who could appear anywhere in the galaxy. When they were needed, years passed. The memory of the Great Burning became history, then legend. Children born in the new galaxy learned about the humans who burned their own worlds rather than surrender. On a small planet in the Outer Rim, a young alien child asked her teacher, "Why did the humans destroy their homes?" The teacher smiled. Because they understood something that the Empire didn't. Home isn't a place. Home is the people you love and the freedom to choose your own path. But wasn't it sad to lose their worlds? Yes, it was very sad. But they gained something more valuable. They gained the respect of the entire galaxy. And they taught us all that freedom is worth any price. The human fleet sailed on through the cosmic ocean. Behind them, they left free worlds and grateful peoples. Ahead of them lay new adventures and new challenges. They had said, "Submit to the Empire," but humans had turned their worlds to dust instead. In doing so, they had lit a fire that burned brighter than any star. The fire of freedom that would never be extinguished, that the wanderers of humanity had found their true home among the stars. And the galaxy was a better place because